Doug Doherty, President of Hamilton Flourishing. And we're glad you've joined us today as we continue our walk down interviews with candidates for Chattanooga, Mayor, and City Council. There's about 36, 37 people running for 10 vacancies. That includes the mayor. And we have one of them with us today, DeAndre Anderson. DeAndre is running for District 8. And before we get to DeAndre, let me just mention a few things. If you don't know, the election is March 2nd, 2021. That's a Tuesday. Voter registration, if you're not registered. In these elections, we need to get as many people out as we can. We historically have had low turnout, and we need to ratchet that up. Voter registration ends Monday, February the 1st. Early voting will begin February the 10th and end on February the 25th. And you can go to our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, and you can learn more about that and how to register and where you vote. Or you can go to the Hamilton County Election Commission, their website, and they can do the same things for you. So we'll be happy to help. So today we're talking to DeAndre Anderson. And DeAndre, thank you for coming. We're honored that you should be here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, married, where'd you go to school, what do you do for a living, how do you like to spend your free time? Just tell us a little about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again today. This is awesome. So a little bit about me. I'm born and raised from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I grew up, I went to school in Harrison Elementary and kind of followed the pattern to Brown Middle School to Central High School. From there, I got very involved with the local education within government. So I was very involved with the school board. I got to work with different nonprofits to help, the efforts of the school system. So that's kind of where my introductory to local politics came in. So I got to sit on the school board as a student representative, and then from there I went off to the military. I went off to the Army National Guard, and I am a religious affairs specialist there. So it's really been interesting to kind of see my life play out so far. Some of my favorite hobbies, I love writing. I love theater. That's what I'm going to school for, is my major. So I love being able to just kind of take what's going on in society and put it into art and be able to educate people that way, because I think the arts is a very strong educational platform, because it can tie in a lot of different subject matter. Yeah. And then this past summer, everything that's gone on with the Black Lives Matter movement, then the tornado that we had on Easter, and being in a pandemic, I just felt like it was time for a representative that was going to put the people first. So that's just a little bit about me in a nutshell. I'm single, so no kids, 22. So
you're 22.
Yes.
Now you say you were in the military. You said you were a religious affairs
specialist. Yes.
Specialist. No, I've never heard of that before. What do you have a home church in Chattanooga?
I do. I go to Brainerd Baptist out in Brainerd.
The one in Brainerd, or the one down in North Georgia?
The one in Brainerd.
In Brainerd.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Thank you. Religious affairs specialist is essentially a chaplain assistant. So a fun fact about me, I'm the first class to graduate with the new name, Religious Affairs Specialist.
Wow.
So I'm in some military magazine somewhere.
Well, that's great. Now tell us, you're running for District 8. Mm-hmm. Tell us where your district is. What precincts does it include, and kind of describe some landmarks for people.
Yeah, so you have like Highland Park, you have Fort Wood, and then it's the Eastgate area. We have Precinct 1, 2, I believe 3. Some of Avondale is in there. Yes, it's weird. The way that it's zoned out, it's really weird. Because some parts of Highland Park is in District 9, Councilwoman Demetrius Coonrod. So it gets a little messy.
Now, do you have the courthouse?
Yes, a little slither of that. Mm-hmm.
And then you have Courthouse 1, and then East Side 2 and 1, Courthouse 1 and 3, it says here, and then Bushtown, Avondale. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I copied
Like
it
I
off
said,
the map.
it's a weird little slither, so I just kind of
Yeah.
ascend the
Yeah.
ones I knew off right the top of my head.
That's great. Now, tell us this. You say you have run for school board before.
Hmm.
Why do you believe you would make a good councilman, a good council person?
Yeah, so I did run for school board because of just my passion for teachers and students. That's something I was very passionate about and was going to school for, theater education teacher. Um, and I realized that when I was running for school board, it was more of raising teachers' voices, representing the teachers, and that's not necessarily exactly what the school board member does. So when I decided to run for city council, it was because I felt like they weren't truly represented. And I feel like that's more up the alley of what city council does. They listen to their constituents, they address those situations, and I feel like that's what was lacking for my district. I didn't feel like we had true transparency. We didn't have anyone that was really listening to what the constituents need. So I feel like that's why I would be a good representative, just because of my different backgrounds with the military and being able to work with different people. It's time for us to move forward, and by doing that, it requires transparency and it also requires communication.
Now, there are 3 people that I'm looking at my list here that are running in District 8. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. And we're actually interviewing those 2 next week, other 2 next week. We ask everybody the same questions. We try to keep this fair. We did a poll before we did this questionnaire that got to ask people what they thought were important about things in Chattanooga. And it was very interesting, so that helped us put together this questionnaire. So you kind of covered the question, what has prepared you for this kind of work? Tell me this, what do you regard as one or more of your signal achievements in your young life?
I definitely believe it would be succeeding the military, being able to go through all of my training, stick it out, even when times get hard, just continue through that because I wanted to serve our country. So I think that's one of my biggest accomplishments. On top of that, it's just being able to be where I am right now. As a 22-year-old running for public office, I feel like that is a huge thing in itself because of the ripples that it will start. So those are just 2 of the big things for me, just right up top.
Yeah, well, I admire you. You're being a pace setter for those who will come after you. What do you think? This is kind of a philosophical question. What do you think is the proper role of city government? Can you talk about that just a second?
Yes, I can definitely talk about that. I think in a way it's to support and lead. It's a way to be able to intervene when needed. I think right now with the pandemic, this is a perfect example of the government kind of intervening and helping where they can to help assist those that don't have what they need in the moment. And I think that's, as cheesy as this is about to sound, I really think that we're missing the love in the city government. I think there's a lot of things that people push for their own agenda and their own things, and they're not really thinking about their constituents and those who they're representing. And I think we need to bring that back into local politics because I don't think it needs to be this dirty, nasty, tear people down, sludge people through the mud type of thing. Because who is that really benefiting? Is that benefiting any of our constituents?
You're the first person who's mentioned love so far. So
Okay.
we'll make you the love candidate.
The love candidate.
Yeah, I'm just teasing with you. No, you're doing great. Tell me what you think are the top 3 to 5 issues for you in this election.
Absolutely.
Top 3 to 5, whatever, somewhere around there.
Yeah, so for me it would be equitable housing, and then it will be sustainable neighborhoods, economic development, and then retention of talent and education.
Are those 2 or 3 or the same thing? Retention of talent?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just in education?
Talent and then education, sorry.
Oh, so you're talking about people who are talented in the community staying here, and then another one would be retention of teachers.
Retention of just being able to help support the school system by offering like more resources, more workshops to kind of help with the skills, like trade skills. So vocational things as well. I feel like if at a city level, we don't have a lot of direct interference with the schools besides like Head Start.
Right.
So I feel like if we did more things to support them, to offer more resources and give students a different avenue to go down, I think that's where our role can be in education in office. And I think the other one that I said was economic development.
Yeah. Good. Now, these are your top issues, but what do you think will be your priority? It may not be one of those issues. Y'all may have to deal with COVID, for instance, or another natural disaster, or any number of things. What if it's not one of these? What do you think? What would be the first thing you'll work on when you get there?
So I feel like I'm not gonna say COVID to be my answer because I think that's a given. That's gonna have to be dealt with. But for me, my number one answer would definitely be our homeless population.
Okay.
That is something that I did not realize how big of an issue it was until I started diving deeper into the concerns that my constituents had. And I realized by working with the Salvation Army that it is a real concern and a real need that we need to focus on, especially in my district, because District 8 is primarily downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where it's pretty bad. So back in October, kind of towards the beginning of my campaign, we partnered with the Salvation Army and did Operation Selfless Service. So me and a bunch of UTC students, we came together and donated just all kinds of needs. So blankets, deodorant, non-perishable foods, just things for them to have while they're out to kind of help them in this moment. I know with the pandemic, a lot of their normal resources have been taken away. So we wanted to do something to give back. And from those donations, we were able to make 250 care packages and help 250 individuals who are homeless right now.
Good for you guys. Let me ask you a direct question.
Absolutely.
Do you support some kind of, or any kind of a tax increase just up front? Are you, as you look at this, as you saying, hey, we got to have more money, we need to raise taxes in some way, or enhancing income or revenues, something? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I do have a few thoughts on that. One of the things for me, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think I need to be more into the budget and look more into that before I can have a solid answer on that.
Yeah.
But I do see the pros and the cons to raising taxes. I definitely think that it would give us more opportunities to do more with our community. But again, I would like to look more into that before I can give a solid answer.
Yeah. Okay. What can the city do to continue to see our economy grow, assuming COVID-19 gets under control, and grow more jobs in the Chattanooga area? In a COVID-19 gone environment, what do we do to see more jobs, more growing economy?
Absolutely. I think we start supporting our local businesses. I think we start helping them be sustainable, and I think that we give more options as well. I think when you have more of what's the word I'm looking for? More opportunities to do workshops, certifications, have more reliable transportation that's affordable, I think that you see more people keeping their jobs and able to thrive where they are. Because I think what we've seen during the pandemic, we've had a lot of local businesses just go out of business. They can't stay open. Small ones especially. So I think first thing after the pandemic is I would love to see us start doing more to support our local businesses and hear them out, work with our unions, hear what their problems are, see what we need to do to be able to retain people. And that's kind of where the retainment of talent for me comes from. Because as someone who is about to graduate with their undergraduate, I'm with thousands of other people that are about to do that. And not a lot of people want to stay in Chattanooga because there's not a lot of opportunities of growth for the vast majority. So,
right. Now, you mentioned transportation. Are you an advocate of a more robust public transportation system?
I am. I think that with how our city is growing, with the different areas where work is being offered, like for example, if I live downtown with no transportation, but I can work at Amazon or Volkswagen, how am I going to get there? I feel like if we have more of a more robust transportation, we will see more people being able to utilize that and have access to work.
No, I agree. I think it's a real need in the community. Let me ask you a question. This is sort of changing gears a little bit. What is the proper role of government in the life of families?
Hmm.
What is there's a lot of families struggling just all across the community. What is your philosophy on this issue? Is that something where the government gets involved, doesn't get involved?
I think you play it by case, but I think it's also one of those things where as candidates we cannot run and say we want to build stronger communities every time, and then as soon as we get the opportunity to, we don't. So I definitely think it does play case by case, because you don't want to have to be seen as the Superman that's going to always save someone from their situations. But I do feel that there are some situations that we should step in and we should be assistance to to families that are in need of help.
Right.
Because I do think that there's just some things that people can't control, some circumstances that are very unfortunate. So yeah, I think it's case by case, and I think it really depends on what is going on, because that's how you build a stronger community, when they can depend on knowing that their leadership is going to help them in times when they really need it.
All right. Do you see a role for the faith community in local government, churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, things? Do you see a role for the faith community in?
I do, and I'm going to stand firm on that. I think that the role of that is to be able to kind of stick by their morals and kind of, and I feel like a lot of things that we've been fighting for in 2020 has been basic human rights. And I feel like that's kind of where the church comes into play. It's just being able to encourage and support and be that motivation for our local leaders that's leading this country. Because I think that it's like a hand in hand. It kind of goes hand in hand when it comes to just doing what's right, what's morally right. So.
Good. Now that we're going to really downshift here.
Okay.
And you have a chance to elaborate. Are you pro-life or are you pro-choice?
I think I would like to, I don't know, I think that it just depends on the situation for me as well. I think that there are certain things in certain moments where I can understand why someone would want to do that, but it's hard for me personally, because I feel like as a man and as someone who is a Christian, that like that's not right. But as a man, I can't put myself in that woman's shoes or whoever decides to do what they want. So it's a tricky question for me, because I have really contemplated it so hard. I don't really have a stance on that.
Okay, that's fair. Um, in the last couple of years, as we've been watching Chattanooga, one of the phrases that's come up in Unify Ed used to be push it around. Black Lives Matter pushed it around. It created a lot of thing was the whole idea of systemic racism. Can you kind of comment on how you look at that phrase, and how you look at is that a part of the lens that you look at the community through?
Yes and no. I think that systematic racism is something, how it was explained to me, is something to help the advantage of white individuals. So the system is created to be able to have white people succeed and everyone else not. I think that there, in some instances, certain people who were in authority abuse that, but I don't think that it's like that for everyone. I think that there's been times where I have witnessed it, I have felt it, but I don't think it's within the system. I think it was within that person who have created a system while they're in power. I mean, it happens, like, for example, in the military, if it happens, what did they do? They remove that person in hopes of being able to move forward to stop the systematic racism. Because I do think it's something that can be created over time if the wrong people are in control.
Oh, all right. This is about COVID. Do you believe the previous city administrations, or the one that's in the office now, and the current county and state administrations, has handled the response to COVID-19 well, or could it have been improved upon? How do you see that? If it could be improved upon, what would you do different?
I think we've handled COVID as well as we can. I think it's a very day by day, second by second, hour by hour response. And I think that there's not a whole lot that could have been done better, in my opinion. I think if there's anything that could have been done better, it's just more communication, more transparency. I think more of that in any situation that you're in is never a bad thing. So that's kind of where I feel on that.
Okay. Shifting again, another question, another part of the world, another part of your constituency. What's your position on the Second Amendment? In other words, the whole issue of right to carry bear arms and things like that. I mean, do you have a position on that?
I have a position that, like, in the amendment, you have the right to do that. I do feel like there's some places that it's just not. I don't. For example, I am the assistant general manager at the Jump Park in Chattanooga, out in Hamilton Place. And when someone carries their weapon into there, I have a hard time comprehending why they need that in the Jump Park. But it is the amendment. People, it's their right to do that. I just kind of feel like in some scenarios it's not a. I don't understand why.
Okay. But you don't see.
It's their right. I feel like.
I mean, you don't see the city stepping in and saying, "Hey, this is a gun-free zone" or something like that.
I don't feel like. Yeah, I feel like it's up to the establishment that the individual is in, like, to be in control of what they feel of that.
DeAndre, do you believe the city is doing enough to help the disabled, mentally ill, the chronically poor? What's your philosophy on the role of government in such things? And I'm not talking about just poor. I'm talking about the chronically poor that for whatever reason can't get out of it. Multi-generational kind of poverty and the disabled and the mentally ill, people like that. I mean, what's your idea about that?
I definitely think that they've done as much as they can, and I don't know the logistics behind closed doors with how they're helping these individuals, but I feel like they're doing the best that they can. That's not something I've heard to be an issue when I'm talking to my constituents in my district, but I think it's always not a bad thing to continue to raise awareness for mental health. I definitely think that is important to have resources on hand for that. And I think that's something that I talk a little bit about with my issue with sustainable neighborhoods in the police department.
Now, your downtown is the food kitchen in your district?
Yes.
So you're very acquainted with the homeless community. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so on top of the thoughts I had early on with helping out with the Salvation Army and partnering with them, I've also partnered with Help Right Here. They're more of a mobile outreach for the homeless population, so they kind of go out to, like, the Ottawa area and things like that. Yeah. So I've been meeting with them. We're coming up with a new plan or some kind of initiative to kind of get the community involved with helping out with our homeless population. But again, I agree. I think that is one of those things where we have to continue to love on them. We have to continue to support them and keep them sustainable. But we still need to move forward. And I don't feel like we've moved forward. We've been very complacent with where we are. And now with COVID, those numbers are just rising. And there's not a lot we can do because of the services that's been suspended.
Chattanooga, most people don't know this, is one of the most violent cities in the country. The city fathers, as it were, just don't like to talk about it. We've got a big tourist industry, and people just, for whatever reason, don't want to talk about it, but we do, according to the FBI. And one of the reasons is because we have shootings all the time. I mean, every weekend somebody seems like they're getting 2 or 3 people getting shot. And it scared a lot of people, especially people in these neighborhoods, older couples that maybe have a home they own, they've lived there for years, and then somebody down the street gets shot. Things like that. So the shootings, how will you approach the problem of shootings in Chattanooga, these random drive-bys and all that kind of thing? What do you think about all that?
Yes, I think that comes down to, one, rebuilding our trust in our relationship with the police department. I definitely think that there's been a strain on that just because of all that's happened last year. One of my goals coming into office, if elected, is to really figure out a way that we can hold the police department accountable. Some things that I have already thrown out was like a future readiness institute. That's what I held.
Say that again.
Future Ready Institute.
Future what?
Future Readiness
Oh,
Institute.
readiness.
Yes,
Okay.
readiness.
Okay.
And it's in hopes of being able to incorporate in their time of training in the police academy, time to be in the community, time to be able to physically be in the neighborhoods that they're going to be working in, but they're not armed. They're there solely to build relationships with our community. So in my head, this is how I think of it. If the police department, if Officer Joe pulled me over, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? He comes to my car. I'm like, oh, hey, Officer Joe, like, what's going on? To me, I feel like it will help eliminate that factor, because usually when things go wrong at traffic stops or what the case may be, it's within those first 30 seconds, because both of us have our own perception of how this is going to go, and that's where the problem comes in. So I think if we became to trust our police department more and be able to keep them accountable in some way, I don't know what that way looks like. But going back to the drawing board together and figuring out what that looks like, I think we will start to see that relationship build, and things like that won't happen anymore. I think that's a start to it.
Okay. Two more questions.
Okay.
What will you advocate for affordable housing within the city?
Absolutely. So that's a huge thing that people keep talking to me about, and we keep always, nailing down where we stand on it, because it is a concern that a lot of constituents have. So one of the things that I've been doing is meeting with real estate agents, talking to different housing organizations that we have to offer, just so we can figure out as a whole, together, unified, how are we going to stop this issue? One of the things that I feel we have to stop allowing developers coming in and gentrifying these empty lots, because they stay empty. They come in, they make these really nice apartments, and then no one can afford to live in them, so they're collecting dust. I definitely think we need to look into revitalizing some of our parts of our city, because we have too many ran down buildings that could be used for, I don't know, homeless transitioning, make that into a homeless housing, help them transition back into the community. I feel like there's a lot of potential in Chattanooga. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a terrible city, but I think that we have a hard time keeping it sustainable. We don't have problems getting businesses and getting things here. We have a problem with keeping up with it while it's here. I think about 10 years ago, you would have said this was a very big artsy city. You had a lot of different little theaters to go to, or theater, what am I looking for? Like the CTC or Barking Lex Theater. We have many of those and many different art, but over the years, it's just like slowly died down, because I just don't feel like we have any sustainability. So that's what I would say with the housing. I think we really got to start there.
This is not, but I do want to give you a chance to answer. You said that, I think you said that arts were a significant part of the glue of the community. Didn't you not say something sort of like that?
Sort of like that, yes.
Let's speak to that just a second.
Well, as someone who is an artist, I would like to classify myself as one. I don't feel like we have a lot of opportunity for other artists. It's very, very small knit family, and that's why we all know each other. I just wish there were more. I feel like there was more opportunities about 10 years ago when I was growing up.
Okay. Well, listen, that's all for my side, from Hamilton Flourishing side. Any last words?
I truly feel I'm going to be the candidate to put the people first and be the true voice of the people. Since the campaign has started, I have called people, I have door knocked, and I've truly seeked their concerns, because I want to bring solutions, and not bring solutions like you guys said this is the problem, this is the solution I'm sticking with. I want them to know that they're a part of making these changes, because it's going to directly affect them. So yeah, my name is DeAndre Anderson.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put the people first.
I like that. Well, DeAndre, thank you for coming. And again, the election is March 2nd. You got a whole bunch of people to choose from. There's 9 council seats, 1 mayor, a bunch of people running for mayor. I think it's 15. You need to make that decision. You can go to our website, hamiltonflourishing.org, and read about all of them, their websites, their Facebook pages, and these interviews will be posted there. Voting is March 2nd, don't forget. And if you're not registered to vote, you've got all the way to February the 1st to do that. And DeAndre, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun, and I love your questions. They're very, very good.
Well, thank you. And thank you for this edition of Hamilton Flourishing.